Good on both for me.
Hey everyone, this is Fosri from Lucid Sight. Happy to do another CSC Dev Q&A today with you guys. And joining me is our Epic Community Manager, Ryan. Ryan, how are you today?
Doing great. How's everybody doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Sure, the community is excited, and I see we already have a bunch of people on our different streaming platforms watching. So, without further delay, I thought first I could just give some general updates, and then we have a bunch of questions you guys provided. Looking forward to answering them. So first and foremost, we have a Halloween event coming up starting next week. So it's going to be pretty exciting. As you can see right now, I have on my screen here one of these Halloween chips. This is actually the FF version of one of the 6 limited edition ships that you could potentially get. So the cool thing is you can still get the skins for these ships. They still have all the ship effects, like the flames coming out the side, but every FF version has a unique trail. So for example, on this one, when I take it out, show you guys later, you'll see flames coming out the back. And there's a few other details that you'll see in the other versions of these Halloween ships that will just make our first fleet or Halloween edition versions of these ships stand out a little bit more. Um, that is what's coming up for Halloween this year. So the next thing I wanted to cover with you guys is some images. I wanted to go over some of the latest art that we have coming through, kind of talk about what's coming up in our pipeline, what changes you'll expect to see to CSE. I think we cover a lot of this actually, Ryan, when I went through the questions with you. I don't want to repeat myself, so I'll skip some of the stuff I know will be coming up in the questions, but we should hopefully be able to get through all of them later today. So let's go to our image showcase here. So starting off, CSC Halloween event starts next week. Tune in and enjoy. You will be pleasantly surprised with how we structured this event. We are doing both in-game and supply crate sales as well. So there will be 2 different avenues in how you can participate. One is purely game-based. We are going to have limits set. So when you're doing the in-game claiming of Halloween items, it's going to be limited to one per player. And then we are also going to be doing some surprise things popping up here and there. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the Harbinger. So we had our first player crafted Harbinger crafted this week. So kudos there, Ryan. You recall the name of the player that did this?
It was Commander Ronar.
Commander Runner. So shout out there. Do you know which guild he's in?
I think he might be guildless, but I'm not positive.
Oh wow, so that's even better. A guildless player catches the first Harbinger out. I'm looking forward though for the next one, the Executioner. That is a bad ass looking ship. It is really cool. Very much looking forward to seeing that go live and seeing which player is the first to craft one. Next thing I wanted to cover here is just some really cool CSE stats. So this is some stats we collected from the start of the year. I believe actually this might be some from the start of the year, some from the start of our 1.0. So overall, over $8.3 million of items have been traded in the CSC marketplace. This is our in-game marketplace, not counting the Ethereum trades that happen outside based on their Gale values. And as you know, one of the biggest changes we recently made to the game is we added fractional currencies to the marketplace. So our Gale values are adjusting, and some of the more lower value items are actually being properly represented. But this is right now about 8.3 million total. Missions completed, 879,000 missions have been completed by you guys. So that's pretty awesome there. Value of items destroyed. So this was an interesting one. This only started from our launch of 1.0 when permadeath and destruction came active. And it is now $1.114 million worth of ships and items been destroyed. This does not count deconstruction. Well, it counts the deconstruction of items for crafting, but when we do the deconstruction, we adjust the value based on how much of the resources left. Meaning, if you deconstruct the ship, for example, you might only end up with 50% of the resources, so we're only taking 50% of that value to that total. So it's a pretty accurate total there. Modules crafted so far has been 1.6 million. A lot of this we've noticed our players crafting modules, deconstructing them, crafting modules, deconstructing them to get the additional skill points and start getting to those higher tech levels. So that was pretty cool. Ore mined is just a gigantic number, so kudos guys. I believe this is from the 1.0 launch. Total hours played, 462,000 hours. So I did some math just to see like what that came out to be per day, and this is going back, I believe, 6 months. And it is just an insane amount. Thousands of hours are being played a day. So again, thank you everyone. I'm glad you're enjoying the game and playing it so much. The next thing I wanted to cover is the changes we're making to the art in the game. So one of the bigger issues that we've had, and it's not a huge issue, but definitely something that kind of breaks the reality of the game world, is the size of stations. So our art team, in between tasks, has been working on updating the station sizes and redoing the textures, adding smaller windows to really give the station scale. So you'll see coming in through the next few updates, are all our stations might get slightly moved in location, but their sizing is going to be more representative of how big they are. Here's an example of two of the stations next to one of our newer dreadnoughts. This is our classic Station 3, I believe, in the game, and it's the one near Venus, the first station you get through. So as you can see, the window sizing, the textures, all of that has been updated to represent the appropriate size. So this is going to look massive near a skipper the first time you get there. Next thing I want to show is another screenshot of that station. And this is a closer view. So this is with our carrier ship, our carrier dreadnought, right up near the station. And as you can see, the absolute detail now that you're going to have these stations is going to be pretty phenomenal. And the last image I wanted to share with you guys today is Castor Casey. So Castor Starlance Casey, CSE, is a primary character in the overall lore of the game. A lot of our story is based around him, and you haven't been exposed to him too much, but we recently had the final character mock-up done, so I wanted to share that with you guys and take a look. And I think that's it for my image showcase today. I'll go back to the live stream.
So we can go ahead and jump into some questions here since we have so many to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you take that. Go ahead.
We'll start with an easy one. This is from Tyrannus, and he wants to know when we're going to be introducing even more systems, and if we're going to see a bigger difference in the distance from Sol for systems going forward, and he wants to know if they won't be as close as the current ones.
So for this question, when you're saying bigger distance, it's like right now we have most of our systems are within 50 light years. The new Arm of Jupiter extension is a little bit further than that. So absolutely, we're looking at doing a mix, both increasing the distance that you're going to travel. So our current database of star systems that we could run. Oh, sorry, I think I turned on an overlay here. 1 second. There we go. So the current distance of the star systems, the current database of star systems we have is about 900, and so we've been wanting to expand that out, but at the same time, we don't want to expand it out too quickly. We kind of want to match our user growth, because I think it is very exciting and good for the game to have players within proximity of each other. Meaning, when you log into the game, you at least see someone flying by. If we blew out all 900 systems, it's very easy for players to end up solo in systems. So as our daily active and monthly active and weekly active users continue to increase, we'll continue to add extensions with small missions and content updates, like we did for the Arm of Jupiter. But yeah, more systems are definitely coming in. We are planning to extend further than the 50 light year radius or 100 light year radius of Sol, and along those lines, it's one of the things we've been discussing internally with our design team is just how to approach this. Traveling in the game is very cumbersome and difficult. It was made that way by design, and then we introduced jump gates to provide a streamlined way to get through. Originally, jump gates were only limited to core systems, but now, as you've seen with the Arm of Jupiter, there are jump gates in fringe systems. So we're considering an extension of the jump gate network as we're bringing these systems in to provide more convenience in 1 hour, 2 hour gaming session to get from one point to another, and still keeping the FTL system for if you want to do quick travel when you're not at your computer, or if you're trying to get to a system with some really rare resources, FTL is going to be your best choice. Or you want to bypass all the gates and get there directly. So we definitely have some interesting things coming up there. Good question. Thank you.
All right, so next we have a question from an anonymous player regarding the fleet control feature that's we've been expecting, and they want to know when it's planning on being implemented, and an extension of this. I guess this is actually a separate question. Is they want to know if joysticks will ever be made usable in the game.
Got it. So fleet control is still one of our 1.1 features that we had discussed quite a while back. It is still something we're looking to do, but as we'll get into with the rest of the questions here, we've spent the last month and a few days, almost 2 months now that CSC has been live at 1.0, really looking and optimizing first our infrastructure to support more players, but hitting a lot of the quality life problems and focusing our attention on the new player experience. We're getting a good amount of new players coming in today, and we're getting a lot of feedback from them of the struggles and the trials they have trying to get into CSC. And primary focus for the dev team right now is addressing those. I think we'll get those addressed over the next few weeks as we continue to make updates to improve that. And then once we get there, we're going to lay out a new roadmap of new features coming out. I still believe that's going to be in our 1.1, 1.2 range. So in near term, I think it's a very impactful feature update. But it's not going to be anywhere in the next few weeks for sure. In terms of 3D flight and joystick capability, we are looking at mapping more joypad controls for controls of your ship, and we're looking at a change to our battle arena. As you know, we recently dropped it, and we're coming up to almost we're working on this. This is still in the prototype phase, almost another game mode for the battle arena. We're entering the battle arena, might give you a little bit more freedom of control. It's a little bit more arcadey and tactical fighting, something that you don't do in normal space, but a little bit more of a competitive fun experience. So I don't want to say too much, just oversell anything we haven't done completely yet, so we'll get back to that. But yeah, 3D flight's something we've considered. I think keeping the 2D plane for majority of the gameplay just makes sense. It makes the game easier to hop in, hop out. It reduces the complexity of travel and a lot of your actions, but there are things we're considering. So if we do end up mapping the rest of the gamepad controls over, I think most of joystick controls will map over as well. But I never feel that that's going to be a core part of the game. CSC is meant to be commanding a ship, not technically dogfighting with one.
So I think that Battle Arena actually slides into another question we have from Captain Obvious. He wants to know if we're going to get a PvP training system without any ship or mod loss, essentially for testing and practicing flight and PvP.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have worked on a change to one of our systems, and we'll announce that as soon as the new battle arena is in. And in that system, or within the confines of a certain area of that system, if your ship's destroyed, you don't lose anything. Your ship basically just respawns at a spawn point, and you can continue. This will let you guys test, PvP, battle, and compete against each other without any serious risk of loss, unless that's what's intended.
All right, let's move to a question on a part of the game that's been around since the earliest of days, and that is vouchers. Many players would like to know when ship vouchers are going to be redeemable. And just for clarification, for any players that might not know what ship vouchers are, they were one of the earliest pre-sale items that are essentially meant as coupons that you can exchange for a certain class of ship.
Alright, well, this one I have a solid answer for you guys today. By the way, I just realized we were still saying Star Trek event on our streams. I just updated all those, so those should now reflect the correct title, Halloween 2020 and our CSC Dev AMA. So, I've talked a little bit about this in the chat, and this is one of the core features coming in this next update, and I'll give you guys a little preview of it. This still has some dev items in there, so don't expect everything you're seeing to show up. But one of the most challenging areas of the game right now for a new player or even existing players is getting that first set of modules and equipment for setting up your ship. And then after that, how do you acquire enough blueprints to be able to even start building something? And up till now, there hasn't been a real convenient way of doing that. You could purchase modules, deconstruct them, but that will only get you so far, and it doesn't really get you to the point where you could effectively do it without a ton of grinding. And then even if you do a ton of grinding, it's hard to find an item of value that then you could go trade or manufacture, deconstruct and use to manufacture one of these valued items. So what we've done is, and this has been in line with what we've introduced with wreckage, matrices, and shards, is now we've centralized a screen in the GFI network panel, which I'll show you here in a second. That'll let you redeem your shards for matrices, and then use those matrices right away from that same panel to get different items. These items could be anywhere from blueprints to currencies to ships to loot packs, and we have the ability to customize and change that, and we will be using this as a primary way of handling our Halloween 2020 event. So in our Halloween 2020 event, you will be collecting candy corn, and that candy corn can be traded as a loot item through this new loot interface to get the specialty crates that you'll have for this event. And as part of that, this new loot system and trade system includes a section for our vouchers. So if you have a voucher, you'll be able to select from the available MP ships of all types for both Prometheus, Corsair, and Intrepid class. So let me just pop this open and give you a look at what this is going to look like. Oh, that's my missions. There we go. So this is the loot interface, as you can see. It's very simple. It has tabs across the top with the different items that you can see. We have a testing category right now. And then you can see I have the different vouchers I could select from. So let's say if I wanted a Harbinger, I could click here. I could click redeem my voucher, and then it checks to see if I have the quantity of those vouchers available. So to use a voucher, just like if you use any item in the game, it has to be checked in. If it's checked out, it won't show here. Once it's checked in, you can select how much of that voucher you want to use, the quantity. If I had 5 and I want to get 5 of these, I could get 5 of these. And that item is then spawned and delivered to your home station. At the same time, you could now get matrices in a slightly easier, though less efficient way. You could actually purchase them directly for shards. These shard counts are similar to what would be required if you want to craft matrices. The only difference is these don't take into the benefit the mods that you have in your workshops. If you have mods in your workshops, you know you could get an extreme density Wimskin matrix for far less than 129,000. But it is a little bit of a challenge, and there's a couple of steps you have to go along the way, because you have to take shards into LDW, UDWs, and then LDWs, then SDWs, then HDWs, and then finally to that. So it could take you several hours of just workshop time to get to that point. Well, if you want to bypass that and just spend your shards directly, now you have that option to do so. You'll also have that option to purchase shards. So this is kind of the first major sink that we're going to have for GRP. This is not going to be cheap. It is going to be at a higher premium. You're probably better off buying shards directly from players that are farming it. But if you are just looking to burn that GRP that you've been collecting, those reputation pips you've been getting from GFI, you're going to have an option to do so. Right now we're just showing 500,000 here. That is not the final number for it, but it'll be a certain quantity of shards, GRP for a certain quantity of shards, and then you could choose to spend as much as you'd like. So if I wanted to buy 2 sets of this, let's do 5 sets of this. So I wanted 500 shards, it would cost me 2.5 million GRP. With those shards, then I could buy some ultra low density, I could buy some low density, I could buy some standard density. It depends on how much I have, obviously, and that would scale up. So using this system, not only are you going to be able to redeem your vouchers and select specific items, you'll also have the option to roll for items. So similar to how we had missions out in the universe where you'd go to find where you could turn in these matrices that you have, you'll now be able to spend them all from one centralized location. So as long as a matrix is at your home station, it'll show up in these inventory counts and it's spendable here. If it's not at your home station, you can't spend it right away. So you have your UDWs, your LDWs, your SDWs. You'll see the different items that you get, the chances of the different items if they're weighted scales, and then you basically select to spend. If you have it, you spend, and you'll see what item you get right away. It's like a random roll for these items. Along with that, we've added some um, updates to the system that'll let us do things that we weren't able to do in the past. For example, these random rolls can include everything from Trilight Fuel to game currencies. We could even have it be able to select a particular item. So if I just wanted this item and I wanted to trade matrices for it, I could. And we have the ability to even have limits. So you could have only so many of these available for users to be able to purchase and then use up. So we are still fleshing the system out. You'll see early implementation of these coming through in this next patch this week, primarily to support the new Halloween event coming up. And then from there, you'll start seeing more and more items updated. The last and most interesting thing I'd say on this loot system is our new random roll system. So this random roll system provides random loot based specifically for each player. So every player will get their different roll, and it gives us the ability to adjust what loot's shown to you based on what you potentially need. It's not going to do this right at the start, but the logic's going to evolve as we're making updates to the game to better help new players get lower end equipment. And as you keep progressing through the game, it'll let you get a random chance at equipment you primarily need. It is going to be designed in a way where it's not going to be your main source and only source of getting this equipment, but more to provide you that first module of a certain type. After that, you're going to have to look at the marketplace, you're going to have to craft your own, but this should greatly help a lot of the struggles we've been seeing with all players and just getting that last piece of item, the last bit of equipment you actually need. I think I answered that overly.
Yeah, I
way
think we
past
hit
that answer.
everything.
Yeah.
So next one up is about guild features from another anonymous commander. They would like to know if there are any additional guild features on the horizon, specifically asking about an anti-friendly fire feature for guildmates.
That one's easy, yes. Definitely going to be an anti-friendly fire feature. It'll tie into a whole party system that we have. So if you are with a guild or with a group of players and you've partied up, you won't deal damage to yourselves, to each other when you're battling NPCs. There's a couple things we've been looking at how to handle this. One is just letting fire pass through the ships so you don't block your other friendly player's shots, or letting it hit your ship just dealing no damage. We're still playing around with what we exactly want to do with that, because both those options have a very different dynamic and could change the game significantly. Along with that, other guild features, absolutely. Shared loot, automatically distributing loot, guilds being able to charge attacks for completion of missions, charge attacks on deconstruction. So if you're deconstructing wreckage, for example, and you're getting shards, shards is one of the primary grind currencies now in the game. Shards are going to be needed and used for everything. It's going to help you get new loot. It's going to help you get blueprints. Actually, that reminds me of one thing I wanted to cover. This is a nice quality of life feature update on the loot system, but I think look for where I put the blueprints here. So now with blueprints, if you get their details and you look on their detail page, it has a link to the actual product. So you'll be able to see what that blueprint actually does without having to go and look it up separately on the screen. And this is just one of probably over a dozen convenience and updates we've done to the entire UI when it comes to items. You'll notice tooltips pop up faster, the text is cleaner and easier to read, it's sharper, and has more detailed information of what you want. Sorry, I digress there.
And then another feature that people are looking out for is ship and or module rental. They would like to know when or if it's going to be possible to lend ships and modules to other people temporarily.
Absolutely. That is a plan. It was a pre 1.0 feature originally. We're still looking to see if it'll happen in this update set. If not, it'll happen in our pre 1.1 feature. It'll happen in our 1.1 post 1.1 patch. The technicalities there are primarily destruction. So if you do rent a module to another player, we're still trying to determine how we want to handle the destruction of that module. If you rent a module to Ryan or I rent my ship to Ryan and it gets blown up and I have it insured or I don't have it insured, what is the flow for Ryan? How do we let Ryan know that ship was destroyed? How do we correctly credit the insurance to the right person? Those things are still being worked out, and some gameplay aspects of it that we're adjusting.
Okay. And then for next, another thing people are looking out for is crafting variances. They want to know when they're going to be able to start discovering all the different variances on the modules and ships that they can craft.
Yeah, a great question. Variances are definitely a post 1.1 feature. There is still a good amount of things we're adjusting. You've probably seen with our patch notes in the last few updates, we were still addressing refinery and workshop and manufacturing items. We're hardening the system, making sure we work out all the bugs before we introduce a new flavor to it. Variances are coming. I would say safely, probably in our mid 1.1 series of updates.
All right. Let me see what else we got. Let's get into a new question. We've kind of hit on questions that are kind of perennials on the Q&As, but we got a new one from Kryptonaut. He's inquiring about mid FTL Q jumps or any way to speed up travel while you're in FTL if you're not in Q jump range.
Yes. So we actually have been talking about this, and it's on the near-term slate for implementation. So pre 1.1 is continuing to use Trilite fuel the way we've intended it as an accelerator for your ship. And so what we're considering to do here is when your ship is in FTL, letting you consume Trilite fuel a certain amount to reduce your FTL time by a certain percentage. This should be able to be initiated both when you're in FTL inside the warp tunnel or when you're at a station looking at the FTL station menu option where you see the list of your ships going. Basically, paying the Trilite fuel will then reduce that time a certain percentage. What we want to do, and we're still working out, is the exact percentage and how much fuel it would cost. Once we have that locked in, simple implementation of the UI and the logic is pretty much ready to go. So yes, there will be a way to accelerate that.
Nice. That's good to hear, especially with all the farther systems coming in.
Yeah, that's the main thing. We're looking at, like, if we want to introduce systems 500 light years away, like 150 light years away, travel times just become very cumbersome.
Oh yeah. Next one's a nice, quick, easy one. This one's supposedly from an anonymous commander, but I have a feeling it's from Bohemian. He wants to know if we're gonna have coffee emojis in the game chat one day.
It's something we just can't do. 2.0. Sorry, guys. Yeah, actually, using all different types of emojis in the game chat is something we're looking to bring in. The chat system supports it, but right now we're still addressing bugs and other issues with it. So we've put a hold on a lot of feature adds till we get the game more stable. Already, it's improved It's been night and day improvement since our launch, and thank you for all the feedback. I think one thing some of you might notice now, if you've been playing the game between the hours of 11 a.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Pacific, you're seeing more of our team in the chat talking to you, the players. So recently we just started an initiative in the company where 30 minutes a day we have a rotating cycle of different individuals from our staff, art, design, QA, everyone's getting in and talking to you guys. We're listening to what you like, what you don't like, things that you think we should change. And this is just to help more of our development team really get in connection with the player base and understand like what problems exist, what are just some quality of life issues that you want addressed, and what are the big problems that might be still existing week over week, month over month, that sometimes drops through the cracks of our development cycles. So it doesn't necessarily answer the emoji question, but it does kind of tie into the chat system and the changes we want to make there.
So since we're kind of in the performance stability realm right there, let's jump over to a question from Captain Obvious about the sync issues. These are the sync issues you have when you're playing in the same area as another player and like the NPC locations don't line up, or they might be like in a different spot on one player's screen than another. They want to know if that's something we've nailed down the fix for or cause
Yeah.
of, and what they can expect from that.
Oh, absolutely. So the sync issues are actually something that it's a good thing in the sense that the reason it's happening is the game's getting more popular. We're having more concurrent users, we're having more users in general coming into the game, and with that, our NPC server is taking a little bit longer, not necessarily to send out the message to the NPCs, but there's delay for different users receiving those messages. And when there's a delay with you receiving the message telling the NPC to move to this position and your friend receiving the message tell the NPC to move to this position or attack, then you guys start seeing a desynchronization of this. A little of this is to be expected, like NPCs are a GU or less off position. But what we've been seeing, what we've been hearing from you, is this is far greater than that, where some NPCs are even firing on some screens but not on others. We've identified where the bottleneck is happening, and part of our server optimization and update plan right now should be addressing that within the next patch or two. But it is something that's purely server side. Once we lock down and get the messages sending in sync, you'll see NPCs in sync. So hopefully soon that'll be no longer an issue. And it looks like total we have over 100 people watching across all platforms. Thank you everyone for tuning in today.
So moving on to another one, Captain Obvious. He's interested in the player-made missions that have been alluded to, and I guess we've also alluded to guild-made missions, specifically transport missions. He's wondering how far out those are, and any other details you may have about them.
Yep, that sounds good. Yeah, so the player-made missions or the guild missions are basically if you as a player say, hey, I want these items moved from one location to another, or you as a guild saying, we need these resources, here's a mission, here's the reward. This is going to be a post 1.1 feature for sure. We looked at the implementation of this, but there are a lot of smaller edge cases that could come up when we implement a system like this that we want to make sure to address. One thing for sure is making sure everyone gets the right credit. Two is insurance. Basically, how do you guarantee that if I have the mission from Captain Obvious to transport all this iron, he doesn't cancel the mission when I'm mid-travel, or while I have that mission accepted? Or if I accept that mission, just hold on to it for 2 years, is he stuck not being able to cancel that mission? It's all those different edge cases that we're kind of working out on how to address.
So in a similar line of content, we can shift over to NPC spawn types and where those are headed. An anonymous player wants to know if we're going to start seeing mission spawns or just NPC spawns in general more similar to traditional MMO spawns, where you just have many more spawn points and set locations.
Absolutely. That is our goal and has been our goal from the start, and it's something our design team's heavily working on and focusing over these next few weeks. So we've done our launch event, we had our last Star Trek event, we did our expansion wars, we have Halloween coming up. After this Halloween event, we're going to take a breath for about a month on major events in the game and focus more on filling out the systems that we currently have. it's always been our intent to, one, have more hidden belts in the game. Have belts where you go to and there's a certain type of NPC you can expect to spawn there or are patrolling there. The good news is the game currently supports that capability. The systems are in place both on our server and on our client to support that. Right now, it's more of a design initiative of figuring out, okay, this is where this NPC needs to be. This is how often it spawns. This is what actions it should be doing over there. Similar to our creatures that we keep alluding to. Creatures are in the game. We have the capability of spawning them and bringing them into existence, but we want to bring them in with purpose, not just randomly appearing. They should appear for some reason. And this is all the story and the game design aspects that we're crafting to try to bring in. Ideally, I'm hoping within the next few months you see CSC's initial gameplay flow and those initial missions and initial systems feel more like a traditional MMO, where I could go kill kobolds over here or kill vampires over there. Similar, the drones are patrolling this area and they drop a certain type of loot. The pirates are here, and this new undefined faction that I'm not going to say anything about right now is going to be doing something exciting. So we'll keep it at that. Almost slipped up. You almost got me there.
You almost leaked something there, I guess.
Yes.
So we're about 35 minutes in. We got a decent amount of time left.
Is there any questions directly from chat right now as we've been talking? I know Ruby's monitoring our Twitch, so if she'd let me know.
I found this on the web first.
Sorry,
I do see one from Hades. He wants to know when we're going to be able to name specific ships. I guess this is more in reference to not only the FTL screen, so we know like which ship is which. Maybe we have like a harvester that's decked out specifically for gas mining, then you also have harvesters specifically for ice mining, and you want to be able to label them so you know which is which when they're in the FTL screen or in loadouts.
Yeah, actually, this is, I believe, one of the quality of life fixes we have coming up in the near terms. Again, it's just about where the UI is for naming the ship. I will need to follow up. I don't know where it is currently on our roadmap, but we'll definitely post that into our build notes when it's coming up, once I confirm.
And then another question that is about the organics mining. Everyone's been waiting and anxious for that for a while.
Yes, so we have organic mining in dev. We have the organics existing. It comes back down to design implementation. We don't want to just put these things in arbitrarily. Like all of a sudden you have organics. We're trying to craft a reason around it, and we're bringing it in. And organic mining is, in our design mind, going to be tied directly to a commodities market in the game. Basically an NPC marketplace where NPCs are buying and selling certain goods that you could craft from organics, as well as you get biohexane from organics you need for other item crafting. But these items that you'd craft or manufacture are basically just for trade. So either you're supplying foodstuffs to a station in the arm of Jupiter, or you're creating luxuries to deliver to a NPC group in another sector. The goal here is organic mining is going to be one of the fundamental ways of getting those resources, manufacturing them, and trading them. So again, it's coming in more as a wholesome feature other than just here's another thing you can go mine, here's the equipment you can go mine, go do it. We want to have more of a purpose with it as we release. Got a couple more questions here coming through. Daily assignments and randomized loot still on the roadmap. Daily assignments are still on the roadmap. Again, this is a design implementation issue. We are working on coming up with what the cycle of these missions are, what the reward is for getting them. A big part of this is the loot system coming in. Randomized loot is still a thing. NPCs can drop blueprints here and there, can drop rare loot here and there, but the focus on the loot system is now going to be on wreckage to shards, and then shards, you just check the loot screen once a day, see what new random loot shows up there. The random loot that shows up there changes every X minutes or X hours. It'll show you when it's expired. It'll show you when the next one's coming up. You go back and see, and then from any point in the game, as long as you have it stored at your home station, you could spend your loot to get the random drop or get a specific drop of an item. Nice, so changing a little bit, where I think it's going to make the game a lot easier to manage. Right now, all this stuff exists. For example, you could turn in a matrix to a mission giver at a far off station. The problem is you don't know if that mission giver is at that station, and they're constantly moving. So we've gotten rid of that, and we're going to a more centralized UI. And this should really help define grinding in the game. There is a purpose now to go just kill a bunch of drones, collect the wreckage. Those shards can be worth a lot. There could be good, rare blueprints, new items in the game that are introduced through the loot system in a much more easy to see way.
I'm gonna pick another question from chat here on DLive because I haven't actually seen this question or suggestion before, but it makes a lot of sense, and it's from Lestache. They want to know, is there going to be a mission sharing feature within groups? So, like if you're in a party with three of your friends and you have a mission they don't have, will there ever be a feature where you can just click a button and share that mission to your friends in the party?
Yeah, this is in the scope of our partying grouping system. So if one player has a mission that the others haven't completed, you can get shared credit, and only one person would need to have the mission.
Nice. I'm gonna jump to a question that's kind of outside of the game. It's
Sure.
from one of our older players, Russ Frankie. Russ Frankie.
Oh yes, Russ. It's been a
Um,
while. I hope he's doing well.
he wants to know if CSC would ever consider collaborating with a Metaverse or collection project similar or like Terra Virtua, which is basically just giving users a way to showcase their ship collections in AR or VR. Basically, can we expect CSC ship models to ever be viewable outside of the game? I think is the essence of the question.
Yeah, this is something from the start of the game, something we wanted to support. If you as a player want to display your ship model, it's an NFT you own, you should be able to do it. We we don't currently have an easy way of providing you that model plus the texture and the information to make it look perfect outside of the game client. The game client does a lot of adjustments to apply these effects and make it stand out correctly. It's something on our long-term roadmap, but right now our main focus is fixing the first time player experience, making it better for new players coming in. You existing players in our community right now, you know there's a steep learning curve still for this game. There's a lot of things you need to figure out and understand. We want to address those first, make it better for new players coming in, and then we'll start moving to these additional feature adds and extensions.
Okay. We're gonna jump on. We got this question in chat from Bohemian right now, and it's also in one of the submit questions. It's
Mm-hmm.
about armor,
Ooh, okay.
and whenever it's going to be differentiated from hull, essentially, and function as armor and not just additional hull.
So specialized armor meaning the armor modules that you add to your ship just add to your hull. So we've had probably in backlog and in our plan here to have ablative armor as a module for most ships. Basically, you could have a Voyager that has ablative armor on it. I actually believe on the dev version I could manually trigger ablative armor on a Voyager, not the Star Trek Voyager, but our Voyager SE or Voyager MP, and you'll see the armor on the ship itself. So that has always been what we considered armor, like as a separate stat. So armor that you get as a module right now that you add that adds to your HP, that's its intended use. Ablative armor that provides you a whole new stat bar is also intended to come in. Right now, it's only available on a few limited ships. The plan is to expand that out and make it available to other ships. The challenges there have been, as we're introducing skins in different ships, making sure we have models that could match that armor or come up with some type of generalized armor that we could put on there. So I wouldn't say it's out of the realm that in the future we move armor away from hull and make it its own stat bar, similar to how we have ablative armor, but currently the plan is armor mods add to your hull, and that's armor. Now, what we have implemented, and we have done zero design implementation on, is resistances. So, as you've probably seen, certain shields, all shields have a resistant value. Like, it could take a this is more effective against energy weapons or kinetic or explosive. Those coming in and modules that specifically up those resistances is something that's in our designers' hands right now and something we're adjusting and will introduce that I think will fundamentally change how you tackle an enemy. For example, a drone might be more more resistant to kinetic damage, but weaker to EMP or electrical damage. So you would choose to use more electrical or EMP type of weapons or energy type of weapons to take out drones versus a straight up gun or a cannon, because that's more kinetic damage. That's something that we are going to be introducing just as a stats update, and then you'll start seeing the effect. Currently, the ships are already designed to take that into account. Damage is already accounts for these specializations. It's just we don't elaborate on that too much in the game or the tutorialization, and you don't see too many examples of how to really min-max your ship to specifically take out a specific type of NPC. For this to work, obviously, we also need to have NPC zones and kind of everything we talked about, like a traditional MMO, to start coming in.
Okay.
Bohemian gives me questions that let me ramble for like minutes and minutes. It's great. I owe you a cup of coffee, sir.
We have so kind of an area we haven't hit on, but we've got a lot of questions on. We regularly get questions on is client security and if the client will ever be encrypted. Like, which way is LS looking to move with the CSC client?
Yeah, so there are several things we've already done to address client security. There's some that we have not enabled because there's a lot more false positives than we'd like. But anything we do, we want to make sure that we don't break the game for a lot of users. Completely encrypting all the DLLs, absolutely, it's something that we could easily do at runtime and build time. Creates a slight challenge for us for debugging issues, but it's not insurmountable. The main problem is that doesn't actually fix the core issue. We've done a lot of research and talked to other people in the industry of these types of games, and really what comes down to the right solution for this is add some type of middleware, like an anti-cheat client that runs in parallel to the main game client. Something that like Fortnite does, the new Star Wars Squadron game. This monitors the game client, monitors the local applications running on the PC to see if anyone's modifying things beyond what the intended purpose of the game is. This is going to be the direction we're looking to go for a overall hack fix. This will also let us take advantage of these third parties continuing to update and monitor new hacks as they come out and adjusting they adjust and provide the updates to address new tools that players are developing in general to mod or hack live multiplayer games. I think that's going to be the appropriate solution moving forward, and we're looking at the middleware solutions to bring in the near term to address that. We also have some other interesting things that we've built into the client to do something similar, but anything built into the client is always potential to be exploited.
So the next question is from an anonymous commander. It's about the mission spawn randomization. They'd like to know if we've ever given consideration to randomizing missions or essentially making mission spawn locations specific to each player.
Yes, that's the easy answer. So mission spawn locations specific to each player. That's a near-term solution we've considered probably week over week. It is something we're looking at right now. What we're trying to address is we still know there's some problem with certain mission spawns. Certain mission spawns aren't spawning for all players. When we test, we see it spawning fine. It works fine on our dev. It works fine when our engineers and QA try it on production. Once we lock down that issue, we'll continue to make adjustments. Right now, we're still in the mode of fix the problems we know we have, make the game more stable, introduce some new content to continue to be fun while we do this. We address the stability issues, and then we'll bring features like that in. That plus, I've talked about this like month over month for forever, is our different mission types. More than just deliver and destroy missions, we have our exploration mission classes, which have a whole set of implementation that's interesting and ready to go, and will tie into creatures and organics into a way, but we'll get to that. I'll get to that when we're closer to release on this.
Were there any other anything other topics you want to go over outside of the questions? We have about 10 minutes left that we could.
Well, I mean, how about let's talk to you, Ryan? You play the game a lot. Tell me about your experience at CSC. What are some fun things that happen to you? What are things that you're curious about? I know, like, a lot of people think that you know everything that's on our development slate, but unfortunately, just there's so much, and you work part time with us as our community mod. You don't have all that information. So, what's on your mind?
Uh, I think I think the guild features are going to be one of the biggest features that I'm looking forward to, just because it's the guild features and then the guild and player created missions are essentially going to turn the content creation over to the players, and I think that's people are really underestimating what that can do, because the guilds have always been and will continue to be a major part of the game,
Yeah.
and they really drive not only the content but also onboarding the players. So I think anything that we have that gives more power to the guilds is just going to have like exponential rewards in terms of like content and uh, just I guess overall enjoyment for the player base.
No, I absolutely agree. Actually, right to that point about empowering the players and empowering the guilds to be creating content. I think one thing that we've discussed over and over in design meetings, we're a small team for MMO of this size or MMO of any size. We are small. We make great progress, but really what we want to start handing things off to is the player community to kind of grow this game, grow the universe, grow the in-game economy themselves. And to do so, we've been talking about a lot of different ideas for UGC tools, letting users, similar to how we used to have a racetrack, which we should probably bring back someday, and our battle arena, can we have players just go and set up their own tracks in battle arenas? Can we provide tools where you could just build in space, like set up your own asteroid belt, submit it to us for review, and then we could bring in instances like that, or basically let players create their own type of mission scenarios, like the mission system we talked. I think these are definitely on our near term. They're at the front of our mind as we improve on stability. These are things that will probably come in first to help uh, crowdsource the content for CSC. The CSC is a universe where you own your items, you own everything in this game. So we want to make sure that level of ownership, uh, you could take it to the next level. Own a little part of space and build your little empire, or create your own story. Really.
We got another question in from Decipher. He wants to know if there's a ETA or like a rough ballpark on when we can expect the second wave of public workshops and facilities to go on sale.
Um, Near term, like we are looking at the manufacturing output right now of the game, how often, what percentage of refining slots and workshops and manufacturing slots are in use, and it peaks and valleys, but there's definitely a high utilization, especially lately. We expect that utilization to actually go up after the loot system goes live, because all of a sudden a lot more players are going to have access to blueprints, and a lot more players are going to be able to have access to items to let them start getting into the manufacturing crafting system. So as soon as we start seeing that peak after the loot system, we'll open up the next wave of refining slots and workshops and manufacturing slots. Currently, we did open up the expansion war system, has a new set of those available, but we'll be doing the next wave for all systems soon. So very close, near term. Probably shortly
And
after the loot system goes live, and we work the kinks out of that.
and another question slightly related to that is on refining modules. People want to know if there's a plan to one introduce some kind of like durability or deterioration on them, so they don't just sit in refining workshops endlessly. And then two, if we are still expected to specialize them more.
Yes and yes. So the refining modules we currently have was the first set that we introduced. It wasn't meant to be the last and only set that ever existed, but we want to make sure as we bring in new ones that the users that have modules or have worked to build really good modules or increase their tech levels. I think that's like the number one thing that gets updated is our refining modules. I see
Mm-hmm.
those are new inventions over and over. There will be new ones coming in. We are considering new ones coming in to do slightly different things, so it's not just like this is a better version or slightly worse version of something that exists. More like this might increase speed or reduce resource usage in a different manner, but that is planned. Um, Sorry, can you repeat the first part of your question again? I think you just answered this.
Uh, so it's about durability, basically like
Yes,
a
durability.
durability stat for refining mods.
For anyone who's explored and examined the data in the game, you'll notice that every item in the game does have a durability value. Um, Durability in a refiner in refining is a thing. Those items will decay over time. We will introduce this as a new system, but it's probably not going to be near term. I'll say it's close to 1.1 or slightly past 1.1 before we do that. Right now, we're just hardening up what we currently have before we get there. But yes, that is the plan. That is the idea.
I think
Anything?
that is about wrapping it up.
Yeah. There was one more mission here I saw that was pretty. Oh yeah, weapon misses.
Ah,
So this was actually another anonymous one. We actually currently in the game have a hit miss crit system. It is currently set to always hit. This is again coming back to where we're really starting to focus our designer attention on is bringing in miss and crit chances to your ships. So certain modules and certain weapons, depending on their quality, or there will be new modules to just quality, might have a chance of dealing more damage in certain shots than, or less damage in certain shots, depending on a roll. And miss can be a factor. Miss is really supposed to play into speed and size of a ship, meaning a smaller ships like an interceptor will be much harder to hit with larger weapons. So if you have a capital size weapon on your destroyer, you're no longer going to be able to one shot kill an interceptor that's moving very quickly and orbiting around you. That size of the ship plus the speed of the ship will calculate into the miscalculation. And while the weapon will visually hit, like you see in most MMOs, you'll see a miss or a reduced damage account. This actually ties into another question we had here about specializing different ships. That is the plan. That is how we expect to specialize ships. Is the introduction of all these systems will all of a sudden see like, yeah, it's not a bad idea to have an interceptor. An interceptor looping around a destroyer can just be a complete pain for the destroyer to take out. You have a whole wolf pack of interceptors, 15 or 20. That dreadnought might not be able to keep up with that. It might have too big weapons or weapons that are too slow to keep track of that ship. This is kind of like the long-term vision of what we have, and these systems have been in place since pre-alpha. Just it again comes to a design pass to make sure they're properly implemented. We don't completely change the dynamic of the game overnight.
yeah. There's a lot of systems in the game still that we just really haven't even taken advantage of. That real, especially when it comes to combat, like the hit miss crit system. Then you have all the different shield resistances that are really gonna like just fragment and make the combat system a lot more complex, and we just haven't even touched them yet.
Yeah, and the nice thing about a lot of these systems is they've existed. They've been in the game for a while. But we're a small team. We have this very ambitious game, and we've kind of hit a great runway here for the game where we've hit a good content amount. There's enough for players to come in. Now we just have to address the new player issue, and then we'll start rolling these features out. The game's going to continue to grow. CSC is going to live for a long time with us, and we're looking forward to year over year, just like compare CSC to last year's version to this year's version. It's night and day. Imagine a year from now when we have this conversation. Hopefully, we're talking about four-dimensional flying at that point, not even 3D. One question that came up here from the chat is GFI items can't be deconstructed and cannot be deleted. Is there a plan to allow you to clean up GFI items? Yeah, we're going to add the ability to deconstruct it into something very minimal just for the sake of deleting. So TBD on that one, but it should become relatively quick. I think that's everything for me today.
I think that about wraps it up. Yeah.
Well,
We covered just.
go ahead.
I would say we covered just about everything, unless you have something else you want to touch on.
No, I mean overall, just a general update in the game. Thank you everyone for participating, joining us here for the live stream, both on Twitch and D Live. Got a crazy amount of viewers, so thank you, appreciate that. Really, continue playing the game, continue to provide us your feedback. We're very dependent on you guys to tell us what's working well, what isn't. So when you see our team members on, feel free to give them an update, what you think will be great, and what you think can be improved, and even what you don't like with the game right now. We'll continue to deliver you quality updates week over week. Look forward to this week's update with the new loot system. But other than that, I'll catch you in space. Fly safe. Thank you again, Ryan, for joining and modding this Q&A.
You're welcome, and everybody have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.